Good morning, everyone. It is now 10. There are several other counselors that are on their way, so I'll give them about 5 minutes, and then we'll formally get started then. And thanks everyone for being here on time. I know it's not a very nice day out there. Yes, Dartmouth caused the problem. Yes.
I believe that we are ready to go live.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. My name's Janet Steele. I'm the counselor for District 12, which is Clayton Park West, I should say, with Councillor Morse here, at Wedgwood, Beachville, Lakeside, and Timberley. I'm the chair of the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee. I'm joined here by William Hatfield, who's our solicitor, and Maggie McDonald, who's our executive director of Parks and Recreation. So I'd like to issue our land acknowledgement. And before I do that, though, I will say that the meeting was called to order at 10:06 a.m. Because our wonderful legislative assistant, Simon Sigel-Ross, was just going to remind me, and I failed to introduce you, Simon, that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 3, 2025. So looking for approval of the minutes, looking for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Kent, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Purdy. I may have been looking down. Thank you. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, looking for a call for the question. The question has been called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay, or raise your hand. The motion has been carried, not defeated. So next item on the agenda is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Do we have any changes to the order of business, Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm to the Standing Committee that the Clerk's Office has not received any requests for additions or deletions as of this time.
Okay. And are there any other further changes to the order of business? Any requests from committee members? Okay. Could I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Councillor Daigle-Gammon moved and Councillor Purdy seconded. Are we ready for the question? Okay, the question has been called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Is there any business arising out of the minutes?
Thank you, Chair. No business arising out of the minutes today.
And are there any declarations for a conflict of interest? Seeing none, moving along. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notice of tabled matters. Correspondence. For correspondence, is there anything that has been received since the beginning?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there was one piece of correspondence related to item 13.1.1, and that has been circulated to all members of the Standing Committee.
Okay. Do we have any petitions or presentations? None? Okay. So we are now at the public participation part of this meeting. So I have a bit of a blurb that I have to read. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. The clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete for all speakers. Any member of the public who has registered with the clerk's office will be given 5 minutes to address the topic. When I call your name, you may come up to the microphone. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I will call 3 times to ask if there are any additional speakers from the gallery. So our first speaker today, and the only registered speaker that we have as of yesterday at 4:30, is Mr. Mike Lancaster. So I'll ask Mike to come forward, please. And you have 5 minutes, Mike. You may proceed.
What was it, green? Oh, you confused me. There's a green light here and a red light there. That's kind of confusing. I'm here today as the only speaker, which is kind of strange to me. As you said, I registered at 4:30. I wish there was a little more participation. Hope some in the gallery also participate. I'm here to talk about what I think. Well, it's not necessarily what I think. It's what we've been able to demonstrate at the organization that I work for. I'm the executive director of a charity called the St. Margaret's Bay Stewardship Association. And we've been working for over a decade to get a provincially designated wilderness area called Ingham River Wilderness Area. It occupies a very large flank of the western part of the Halifax Green Network Plan. And it's an area that I just wanted the opportunity to talk about today as kind of a crucial component of the Halifax Green Network Plan and the need for collaboration between the province and the municipality. When we started, which was 2 mayors ago, we had support from Peter Kelly at the time and then Mike Savage, and it's something that has a lot of ties to the municipality, a lot of significance to the municipality, and obviously occupies a large portion of it. The area as it currently stands is about 10,500 hectares, kind of north of the area of Hubbards and Upper Tantallon. It occupies a large percentage of the St. Margaret's Bay watershed and is kind of the conjoining feature between the counties to the west and some to the north, and then further connecting the rest of the eastern parts of Halifax Regional Municipality. It's an area that is under a lot of threat, and so we're kind of constantly looking for allies and support, and the municipality has always been a big one, but with kind of the advent of this progress report, we're hoping maybe that can be more of a conversation that's included. The area, just to kind of give some background, it's got the literal oldest known forest in the Maritimes, which is a pretty big deal to have. It's something that I kind of wish we could champion a bit more in the municipality. I won't tell you where it is, but I can tell you that it's in the area. It's an incredibly unique feature that is kind of exemplary of what the area also supports. It's being identified as core habitat for mainland moose, which is kind of government or conservation speak for area that's essential for the survival of the species. So it's being identified in the recovery plan of the mainland moose, which is a provincial plan to help to recover the species, mainland moose, which is one of Nova Scotia's most endangered and charismatic and iconic species. Everybody loves a charismatic megafauna. But we've also been able to identify a further 16 listed species at risk, so ones that are either listed federally or provincially as endangered or threatened. And we've identified a further 73 species of conservation concern, and in my world, that's species that are imperiled, but the government hasn't necessarily gotten around to protecting them legally yet. So it obviously has a tremendous amount of ecological value from what I've just described, but it also has a gigantic amount of community support. It's something that's very heavily celebrated within our immediate community of St. Margaret's Bay, but we've also been able to petition for successful support from the Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia, the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, and a further 55 plus businesses and organizations all across Nova Scotia, with a combined membership of over 35,000 people. So that's a pretty impressive list, if I do say so myself, both from an ecological standpoint as well as a community support standpoint. So bringing it today is kind of an example of some of the areas that both present opportunities and threats to the Halifax Green Network Plan. It's an area that Tantallon is quite a fast growth area, just outside of the kind of Hammonds Plains area. Hammonds Plains has seen a tremendous amount of growth, but the way that we're trying to envision the Halifax Green Network Plan as a municipality, a lot of that is around planning for not just the immediate future, but decades in the future. And it's such an important, crucial connector for not just Halifax Regional Municipality, but the province. It's one of the most narrow points in the entire province if you kind of draw the line between the Bay of Fundy and Mahone and St. Margaret's Bay. It also has the province's longest lake, Panook Lake, which kind of bisects most of that. So that presents a bit of a barrier for terrestrial or land-based ecology as well. So it means that we've got this kind of province and region-wide significance placed on an area that's within our HRM, and I hope that it's something that council and kind of all the municipalities see the value in and take that responsibility as seriously as it needs to be taken. Just wanted to talk about how awesome that area is.
Thank you, Mike. I see that Councillor Morse has a question for you, so Councillor Morse, go ahead.
Thanks very much for being here today and for your presentation. I wasn't aware of the extent of the ecosystems that you described and the habitats. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about who owns the land that you're talking about. Sometimes that ownership has a big impact on what happens next. So.
In government speak, it would be Crown land, owned by the province. I always prefer the term public land myself because it belongs to everybody, not just a figurehead. And that's what all the area that we're trying to get protected is provincially owned public land.
100%.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Mike. So we'll now move on and ask if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to speak today. Come forward, please. And please state your name and your district or the community in which you live.
It's all going? My name is Mona Bordage, and I'm from East Lawrencetown at the beach. And I've been on 2 green networks that relate to HRM. One was in the Gatesbrook Greenway, and the other one is with the Atlantic View Trail. One of the issues for the outskirts of HRM is obviously accessing the core and having a connected greenway. So I'm hoping that that is not abandoned. It makes a big difference to the way in which people can move around and be healthy. Because even though people think, oh, it's great in the country, you have it all so well, there aren't sidewalks, there aren't safe ways to move around if you have any mobility challenges. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, if you've come into the city in that capacity, then you rely on public transit. And that's one of the links. Obviously, with some of the other links that have been extremely controversial in the last year or two have been, where do you bike in this city and do you even want to? The safety is a crucial factor. And the way that we model that or put it down is it's being marginalized more and more economically because we have trouble with managing traffic. And traffic always seems to be the dominant issue, and now it's the container ports. So in the same way that we've seen neighbors to the south leverage economic coercion, we see the same thing happening in HRM. So I hope that you will put a percentage in for the people who want to move around the city and pay the taxes to do the right thing. Don't abandon it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mona. Not seeing any questions. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Okay, for the third time, is there anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak? Okay, well, thank you to both of our speakers, and we will move on our agenda. Information items brought forward, none. We're now at reports, and I understand staff have a presentation and will be available to answer questions for this item. So I'll ask David Hod and Leah Perrin to come forward, please. Or maybe just David is presenting.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, my name's David Hod. I'm the Green Network Plan Project Manager, and I'm based within the Planning and Development Business Unit. So I want to talk to you today about the Region's Green Network, and in particular, our priority plan to implement it. We're in a very different place from 2018, when the Council adopted the Halifax Green Network, which followed extensive analysis and engagement and consultation with lots of people across the municipality. We now not only have lots of new faces and new roles, but we've also got a very different world, and we've got a new council, and we're also in a very different planning context. This annual report, this report is the 4th annual update for the Green Network Plan, but it covers the years 2023 and 2024 to help us catch up. The Green Network Plan is the municipality's open space strategy. It's a high-level strategy to help us cherish our open spaces. Its express purpose is shown here on the slide. Now, when I talk of open spaces, you probably think of some of our really amazing parks. I know every district has some really fantastic parks. Or perhaps you're thinking of the waterfront. But our open space is broader than just those parks. Open space includes all natural, working, recreational, built and cultural landscapes, and includes publicly or privately owned, undeveloped land or water, intended to be preserved for agricultural, forest, community farm, ecological, historic, public safety or recreational purposes. And so it consists of lands for natural resources, agriculture, recreation, environmentally sensitive areas, hazard-prone lands, cultural landscapes, natural corridors, and trails and preservation areas for potable water and for waste and resource management. So whether it's the place in the nearby woods where kids can play unsupervised, or the plot where a new Canadian grows their first food in their new home, or whether it's where ashes are scattered in memory of loved ones, open spaces contribute hugely at every stage of people's lives and to their sense of place and to the quality of their lives. But the complexity of uses, ownerships and visions of open space make it inherently vulnerable to change. Through an open space strategy, we work together to continue to cherish the environment that we share and that we depend on. So the Green Network Plan emerged out of a green belting exercise, asking the question, does the region need a green belt? And if so, what should it look like? And it arose out of the 2014 plan, regional plan. So after extensive rounds of engagement, the plan was adopted unanimously by Council in 2018. And given the value open space provides us all and its vulnerability to change, the plan has attracted a lot of passionate interest and continues to do so. I thought with this slide I'd bring in a bit of the Green Network here for us to enjoy. The Green Network Plan's vision is for an interconnected open space network across the region that offers citizens healthy, productive, beautiful and enjoyable spaces for future generations. Open space in the network provides multiple ecological, recreational, cultural and economic functions. And the other aspect of the vision is recognizing that success in achieving this vision is rooted in public involvement and in multi-sector collaborations. To deliver the vision, the plan sets out 32 objectives, and they are organised around these 5 themes shown here. Things like ecology and outdoor recreation may be fairly obvious in a sense, but it's also important that our open spaces are working landscapes that provide enormous economic benefit to us. And the community shaping is how the natural environment or our green network helps frame and define the places and the settlements that we live in. So the 32 objectives are organised around these 5 themes, and there are 79 actions identified to achieve those objectives. Some are highly specific and others are more broad brush. There are also 8 guiding principles to support the vision and inform the implementation of the plan. The majority of the work requires effective collaboration across multiple business units, primarily planning and development, parks and recreation, public works, and property, fleet and environment. And there are diverse partnerships with other levels of government, organisations and communities needed too. The plan anticipated that actions could be initiated, or in some cases completed, within a 7-year time frame. However, when the plan was adopted, the Green Network Plan didn't have an implementation plan that set out resource needs, governance, or a robust monitoring and evaluation framework. Since that time, the Green Network Plan Project Manager role was created. This is my role, to help develop and coordinate an implementation framework. Now, before we look directly at plan progress, the report that you have details a couple of external factors that underline the importance of the Green Network Plan. There's information there about the growing urgency for nature conservation, and also about advances in our understanding of the health and well-being benefits that access to nature provides. I want to focus here a little bit on the healing gift of natural space, as it's an immediate benefit of the Green Network. The pandemic starkly reminded us what we've long known, but tend to overlook. Our open spaces are a crucial natural health service for residents, providing profound health and well-being benefits. Some direct health benefits of access to open space I've shown here in italics. So this is peer-reviewed science that's summarised there. As well as a better understanding of what benefits open spaces provide, researchers have also advanced understanding of who benefits and how these benefits may be provided to all. These advances have implications for how and where we provide parks and access to open spaces in the region. We know that the benefits of access to green and blue space are shared by people of all ages, incomes and backgrounds. And we also know that nature-rich spaces provide greater benefits than green space with limited biodiversity. We know how nature connectedness builds wellness through emotion regulation. We know how exercise builds fitness and how play builds, well, so many benefits for young people. Our open spaces provide cultural meaning, community, sense of place, and opportunities for food growing. Crucially, we know how inequalities in the distribution of open space compound impacts on marginalised groups. And indeed, we also know that the health and well-being benefits that open spaces provide are greatest among lower income and minority ethnic groups. So it makes that benefit more directly to those groups than the rest of society as a whole. Studies have looked at the return on investment of open space in various cities, and these results are pretty compelling. For example, in London, in the UK, a city with a similar amount of open space per person as HRM, they found $27 of benefit for every dollar spent, with almost half of that benefit being health and well-being benefits. So other factors that have been affecting the plan have provided challenges for the plan's implementation. Addressing the needs of a growing population changes the demands on open space. More people increases the pressure on natural assets, making it even more crucial that we effectively steward sufficient open space for all. Increasing housing density is an important part of that solution, but where redevelopments increase density without providing sufficient additional open space, we're effectively reducing the supply of space to people who now don't have a yard or a garden of their own. Another challenge for us has been the policy landscape. The Green Network Plan called for 2 amendments to the Charter to give us more scope and flexibility to meet these changing needs of open space. These have not been resolved, and meanwhile, an existing tool, our ability to apply infrastructure charges for new facilities such as parks, has been paused. The cultural landscapes theme of the Green Network Plan is quite dependent on an update of the Heritage Properties Act. The update was passed by the legislature in 2015, but that act has not been proclaimed. The minimum planning regulations, of course, help us recognise the housing crisis and support increased housing supply. And of course, safe and sustainable housing remains dependent on a natural environment that is providing the vital ecosystem services we can take for granted. Another challenge for the region are the impacts of the climate emergency, which has begun to be felt more clearly. We have had more frequent and more impactful hurricanes, wildfires, drought and flooding events. This adds additional strain on the Green Network and on the communities that depend on it. The Halifax Plan was passed after the Green Network Plan and sets out a programme to adapt and mitigate these issues. Despite these challenges, a multifunctional Green Network approach, rather than a blanket greenbelt, provides the flexibility and nuance needed to allow the development of complementary environmental protection and housing policies that work together. Implementation will consider a range of regulatory and non-regulatory approaches. Funding and implementing the Green Network Plan alongside Halifax is an important action in tackling our climate challenge. So, how are we doing? The plan does not have success metrics or targets, so we need to look at which actions have had some significant activity. The attachment to the report provides a detailed breakdown of the activity for each action. And this chart provides a bit of an overview. For each action, we assess whether the action is considered complete, or whether no significant progress was made, or whether some significant progress was made. And of course, this relates to activity from January 23 to December 2024. This chart shows how many actions in each theme are complete, in progress, or have had minimal or no progress. For example, there are 18 actions in the ecology theme, and 4 are considered complete, and 14 are still in progress. Now, one thing this overview cannot tell you is what does this effort look like on the ground. To illustrate this, the report captures some highlights of what has been achieved, including some policy development, some land acquisition, various groundworks, and there is more details against each action within the attachment. So this is my last slide. This is really just summarising where we see the key next steps that we're taking forward for the Green Network Plan, and they're there for you to see, so I don't need to just read them out for you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions of clarification before I ask a councillor to put the motion on the floor? Okay, Councillor Purdy.
Okay, I don't know if this is clarification or to save it for once the motion is put on the floor, but I agree with your sentiment there. These green spaces are very, very important. And with the development proposals and the province has announced, especially with our special planning areas, is there a way for residents who are concerned about the impact to their green spaces in their community to reach out to your team to work with you with these ecological concerns?
Currently, that's not very well set up. I mean, the team is me and another person.
You're the team.
And of course, much of our work is achieved through other sections within the business unit. So typically, we would be trying to sort of channel that to sort of the right people. And Leah might be able to add more as an example.
I think David's underselling his role a little bit. Leah Perrin, I'm the manager of regional planning through the chair to the councillor. So we have this Green Network Plan. It gives us a framework through, like, sort of a lens through which we view, and all of our planning staff are kind of well versed in what the principles that are embedded in that. And so, you know, specific to special planning areas, like our planned growth team would be kind of thinking about, well, what's in the Green Network Plan that's relevant to this work that's ongoing. And David and his team and other planners are kind of feeding into that process. So, you know, the planned growth team would be doing engagement with community, hearing things, related to the Green Network Plan. Right. They can read the plan themselves and kind of understand what's in there. David and his group, and even my group in regional planning, can kind of give advice. So that's sort of how that plays out.
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Cuddle, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think just looking around the council chambers here, we have 11 councillors, which I think indicates there is a lot of interest in seeing what is happening with the Green Network Plan and where we're going next with this. As well, I just want to note we, get to see some members of the public in the gallery as well. So I remember going to the first kickoff of the Green Network Plan a long, long time ago at the public library. And, it has been, to your point, a long time coming through several councils, mayors, staff members. And, and I just think it's really important to have this presentation and to to get the progress update and to see it moving forward. My questions for you have to do with the concern about the limitations in the municipal charter and the other constraints we face as a municipality in realizing the fullness of this plan, and what it will take really to be able to implement it as envisioned. I don't think there's a lack of will in wanting to do this. I think there's a lack of tools, perhaps, but perhaps you can elaborate a little bit more on that piece in particular, because that seems to me to be one of our biggest barriers to implementation. And the other piece I wanted to highlight was your discussion around the need for open space as you densify a city. And what we're looking at right now is a increasing density everywhere within the municipal service boundary, but in particular in places like the peninsula that are very constrained in terms of access to green space. And so not just the big green spaces like the Shaw Wilderness Park, which is such an important asset for people, within the area, the peninsula and surrounding area, to access for, things, access to lake and undeveloped land, but more on an urban scale, the pocket parks, the civic spaces, the open fields, if you could elaborate a little bit more on that as well, and how we're doing as an urban core. Thank you.
The questions around the sort of constraints of policy tools is one that the Green Network Plan identified at the time it was written. There were two areas where it called for changes to the charter, and there was another area where it was looking at using infrastructure charges that we had not used before in that area in relation, or in the same degree. And yeah, we haven't been able to use those. And in some respects, those the results that we're trying to achieve through those changes have been in a bit of a limbo, because we're not quite sure what's our route around that. And it's clearly not within HRM's gift to change those. There's an important evidence basis of the sort of economic and health cost, as well as the environmental cost of not having that tool at our disposal. And there should also be a way of sort of looking at these options creatively to see if there are alternative measures that we can do. And I think the fourth part of the response to that is also looking at making sure that we really consolidate the partnerships that we have or that we need to build within the province, so that it's understood that this is a supportive, creative, constructive process that serves actually everyone's needs. Is there anything else you'd say on the charter front? Yeah. In terms of densification, as I said in the presentation, it's an important part of the solution to how we adapt to our housing needs. And I think there are some questions around what implications that has for the city in terms of creating enough space internally, how we provide other space on the peripheries. I don't know, Richard, do you have any other thoughts on the park space in?
I would just add, one of the major pieces of the strategic growth and infrastructure priorities plan that we'll be working on over the next couple of years is this, like, what are all the pieces of infrastructure that we need? I don't know whether, and I know that Parks and Rec is working on their own sort of facilities planning work. Richard is here if you have specific questions on that, but I'm sure that you'll be hearing about that in the coming months, and we'll be looking at how those two pieces of work together. So yeah, certainly it's top of mind, and we're, it's not just how much space do you need, but also, like, what are the mechanisms that municipality has in order to actually, make those places real.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Continuing with questions of clarity, I will go to a committee member, Becky Kent, for the next question of clarity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that we are looking to have the motion put on the floor.
We could do that now, though if there are further questions of clarity, we can do that now. We continue with the questions of clarity. We move into debate once we put the motion on the floor. So it's whatever the will of the table is.
Okay. Well, I don't mind putting the question on the floor and then asking as well for committee of the whole.
Absolutely, I was going to request that.
So
Thank
we
you,
have
Councillor
lots
Kent.
of time to ask our
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
Just 1 second now. Know that I just had it here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to move that Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee forward the staff report dated December 30th, 2025 report to Regional Council as an information item only, and move that Halifax Regional Council waive the rules of order, section 83(1) and 3 of Administrative Order 1, respecting the procedures of the council to permit committee of the whole speaking rules.
Moved by Councillor Kent and seconded by Councillor Daigle Gammon. Is there any discussion? Should we vote on the? Yeah, we need to have a vote on the committee of the whole
Okay.
portion.
Question on the committee whole?
Okay, all those in favor of moving to committee of the whole rules to permit discussion of this? Okay. Contrary minded, raise your hand or indicate by saying nay. Okay, the motion to move to committee of the whole has passed, and the other motion is on the floor for discussion and debate. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you. So, of course, I'm in favor of moving this to Regional Council. It's really important that we get these updates. I think equally important for me is that we see the progress. And one of the progress concerns that I have in relation to which the whole basis, I think, of this plan is the often debated and concerns around development permits that are put forward become projects in the community, and trees continue to be cut down and then suggested that they plant again after, and that's an okay approach. I struggle with that. Repeatedly, because we are the counselors on the end of the development questions, and I always feel so very uncomfortable reaching out to staff, seeing if what they're doing at that project is okay, and then yes, it is, because we are going to ask them to replant. And then we start the process all over again for nature to take its course. And I just see that as conflicting with our Green Network plan. I do, and 1 or 2 trees is better than none to keep. And of course, we'd like to see more. And it often is, it's upsetting to residents, but importantly to us as councillors who are supporting the Green Network plan, and for all the right reasons, that we're seeing that. And so I want to know, since it started, can you tell me if that kind of approach to planning is actually shifting? It's been as recent as, I guess, a couple years ago that I had to bring it forward, probably more. And we have council considerations at our community councils where we have to justify a policy reason to vote no against something. And particularly in the rural areas, suburban and the rural areas, we see large parcels that are at risk. Large parcels that communities, such as the folks here, want to value and want to see remain. And our plan is it equating into policy in the planning department to allow for the debates and the considerations around justifying it through policy to vote against it? Is that coming together?
through the chair to the councillor. So I think your first question is kind of around the tree thing, which I almost would bring back to Councillor Cuddles.
Yes.
It's sort of one of those things, right, where we don't have great tools. We have, the ability to require tree retention, which when someone's coming in for a development agreement, we could put tree retention into a development agreement. But if someone has cut trees, meeting the parameters of the Forestry Act before they've even come to us, there's not a lot we can do. So there's sort of, our control is always around development, and there's a sort of, if you're not developing, you're doing Forestry Act thing. It's different. So there's certainly gaps. We had a report actually written kind of right to that topic a couple of years ago. I can send you
yes, please,
that. And the second part of your question was, I think, more philosophical, and now I've forgotten it.
Well, it's around how
are we connecting the sort of philosophy to the policy on the ground? Yeah, and so it's a work in progress, right? Like, so we're, our planning policy and regulations change slowly. We're doing what we can within the bounds of the charter regulations, but we are getting, I think, much more sophisticated. The fact that we have the Green Network Plan in place means that we're able to use that lens to view things. The way that we're doing planning for our sort of future serviced communities, which happen to also be these special planning areas, is quite different than we would have been doing, 20 years ago. So I think we're in a good place where we have this is like a really good set of planning principles in place that can help us develop new policy and guide our decision making going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you to the two speakers. I appreciated hearing from both of you. Thank you so much. David, thanks very much for this work and your update. So I've got lots of questions. So I'm going to start with your next steps. So the motion that's on the floor is simply to send this to the regional council. So you're not looking for direction, or there's no ask here. So your next steps, that's your strategy, that's your plan, that's what you're working on. Simple as that, right? So there's no direction needed at this point in time.
The report is an update, so it's the report is an update saying this is where we are, and so its function is to sort of give you that update. Its function is not to sort of make that request. You can see within the next steps that are listed, developing work plans and success measures. I'm not going to say they will, but if that flushes out, there are some resource implications once that work is done. Then and if that needs to be done within the business planning process, then there should not be a need for a direct sort of other requests directly. But
okay.
Yeah, at this stage, that it's just an information report.
Do you communicate with the Halifax Partnership?
Yes.
Are they receiving this update?
I don't think they've received this update directly at this stage.
They haven't?
I don't know.
Yeah. Who is any councillors here on the partnership? Who is? Yeah. Councillor Dale Gammon, I encourage the Halifax Partnership to request this presentation at their board meeting. I think it's extremely important. And David, you may or may not be aware of, when the partnership is out recruiting businesses to our community, their policy and their standard values that they promote our community with is people, planet, and prosperity, right? So the network plan is a key element to that. So I see the councillor, and I really think this should be they should get this actual presentation, not just the report, but you presenting to them, in my opinion. Just watching my time here, ma'am. Yeah. So as you're aware, we are moving into budget time right now, and I do have a question down the road I'm going to ask about obstacles, but there's a threat to you alluded to Halifax in your presentation, there's a threat to financially of 1/3. So if that was to come to reality, what, if any, impact would that have on the network plan, the Green Network Plan, if the Halifax strategy was cut by 1/3, in your opinion? Through
the chair to the councillor, if the the cuts to Halifax, I don't know which bits specifically would be, so I obviously can't plan forward, but there are certain aspects of what we have delivered within the Green Network Plan that are referenced within the plan, within the update report, that have been only made possible through Halifax funding. So, for example, the naturalisation work in parks, which have been an important part of how the sort of interface between lakes and some of our parks have been, we've sort of managed to soften, naturalise the vegetation around those to sort of address some water quality problems around there. And also some of the green infrastructure, bioswale in East Preston and so on, that I think that was Halifax funded. And also the floodplain mapping exercise that was done recently. I think that was funded by Halifax as well. So I'm not saying they would necessarily be, maybe Jonah Bernstein is here. He may be able to answer more directly, I don't know. But,
sorry to cut you off, I was watching my time. You know, and that's my point. If that plan gets cut, potentially it could have a huge impact to the work that you're doing here. And so, as I'm glad to see 11 councillors around the room here today, you know, that has a major impact. That's not just a number on a page. That's just not talking about keeping the tax rate down. That has a significant impact. And so we should be aware of that. So I thank you for that, David. And just 30 seconds left. It leads into this, you know, to the network plan. What are the biggest obstacles to this Green Network Plan? I just alluded to one. What are the other big ones?
Council talked about some policy constraints, and those are things that we've sort of set out to try and do. That would be one of the key challenges. Another challenge for us has been that the Green Network Plan is a high-level strategy, and we haven't done enough thinking in the past about how do we unpack what that looks like in its full implementation. And I think that's a bit of work that we're working on now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll come back.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Kathy Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, David, for the presentation and the information. You know, it's interesting because you're like a team of one, but coordinating work in all kinds of business units. So, yeah, can't be easy, I'm sure. And there's a lot of the stuff, then we look at this, at the actions and the next steps, and I feel like there's a package that belongs in phase 5 of the regional plan that is rather significant. And so one of the things that would make it a little bit easier for me to see this in a perspective is like a kind of timeline. Like, is there a way to say this action needs to be done in this timeline, this action in this timeline? Like, is there a way to see, a bit easier way to see the interconnectedness about all of this? Because I find one of the things that gets challenging, just like, you know, my colleague Councillor Mancini said, there's just so many places that this could have an impact. And the ripple effect, like when I look at, I think it was 10 actions that there's no movement on at all, and they seem to be at that high level place that you speak of around policy and charter and all of those kinds of things. So is there a way, the next time we see an update, to figure out, is there a way to put some kind of a timeline, to see this in a kind of a visual way, I guess. I'm much more a visual learner myself, but that would be helpful. And I will commit to going to the partnership. But beyond the partnership, I think Discover Halifax might have a good interest in having a presentation like this. My only other comment is, and I know that there are 11 of us here because, you know, our chair and our clerk did a good job of making sure people knew what the agenda was today. It'll come as an information report. I probably, when it comes in an information report to Regional Council, might ask that it be brought forward to the next Regional Council meeting, because I do think the other question I was going to have about budget impacts. And so I think some of our colleagues might want to ask some questions about what is the budget impact, if we might be ready for some of that. And if you could pick one or two actions that you said, these are the priorities, these are the dominoes that would make the rest fall into place. If there's a way that we could sort of digest this in a way that makes it your job easier. So you can say, wow, I got marching orders, I got resources, I got a community of support, so now I know what I can get done this year. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much, David, for all the work that's gone into coordinating this. It is a huge job when your project touches on every single part of the municipality and many of our strategic plans and all of our communities. So thank you very much for the work you've done to lead this so far. I'm wondering if you just say a little bit more. You talked about the importance of access to the outdoors for health and that sort of thing, and you touched on equity. Did anything come up in the work that you've done so far where there would be key points that we have to provide equitable access or key things we need to do to make sure that we have that equity for the outdoors? And then the other thing I wanted to ask about is so much has changed in the decade since this was started. We declared a climate emergency in HRM. That wasn't even on anyone's radar when this Green Network Plan was started. Since then, we've had some very serious events and disasters in Halifax. So I'm wondering if you could also maybe touch on the value of having management plans for natural areas when it comes to preventing flooding, preventing the spread of wildfires, that sort of thing, like how the Green Network Plan can also add to our emergency preparedness and our resilience and that sort of thing. Big topics. I'm just looking for some high-level thoughts on equity and disaster prevention.
Thank you. Through the chair to the councillor. Equity is a really important one, and there are some sort of long sustained systemic issues that affect the distribution of provision of open spaces. There's some very interesting work done with the Urban Forest Management Plan, which is looking to, for the first time, is looking to directly address that certain areas, districts have not really been provided with the same level of service in terms of provision of street trees, as an example. That could be an approach that could be looked at through sort of provision of parkland and open space. And also understanding the sort of different needs of open space use. For example, I've mentioned once or twice, maybe it's because I am a new Canadian that's very insensitive, but actually the sort of new Canadians, that real connection that to the place, first time you grow plants on land and so on. Very often new Canadians are moving into apartment blocks where they don't have that access to space. So sort of understanding how different communities may have those needs, have different needs out of using that space, and understanding that is key too. There are also some connections with the ANSCAP team that we need to sort of work out, to sort of understand how the Green Network Plan connects that work with the African Nova Scotia Community Action Programme. In terms of the value of our Green Network in terms of sort of helping deal with flood wildfire risk, there's some interesting sort of pieces. There's a whole, we could have a whole afternoon on this topic, but things like our sort of areas of our watercourses and our wetlands, they can be very valuable in helping suppress wildfire, but in order for them to do that, they need to be sustained as wetlands and looked after as wetland. And very often those sorts of areas typically in the region at the moment are just in the margins and forgotten about, rather than actually have come under someone's wing, sort of making sure that we're treating it as part of our natural assets and essential critical natural infrastructure that's there to sort of help look after the city. And if we were able to sort of move into planning for those in a more active sense, then we would be able to sort of contribute significantly to sort of managing flood risk and managing events when floods happen, and potentially also with wildfire too. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morse. I see we've done a full round of questions from those that would like to pose questions. I have one, if I may do it from the chair with the consent of members. Okay, great. I was very pleased to hear your presentation and to read your report on the Green Network Plan. I'm particularly struck by your comments about protecting parkland for the future, for communities. One of the things that happened in my district is HRM made a decision to sell parkland that had been granted through a development agreement to the provincial government for a school. And I certainly want to say we need more schools for our growing population in HRM. The work that was done in preparation for the school, they took every tree out of the parkland area that had been an area where deer ran freely, where children played, where many things were happening. It seems like we have some policy incoherence where some parts of the city were protecting trees. We go to great lengths to protect trees, and yet we see this policy incoherence where we sell off land and trees and communities are not protected. The trees were cut up right to the property lines of the residents. So now when you walk by that area, the wind swirls. It's totally changed the pattern there. There's more ice. There's more everything. So I guess I'm hoping if we had a fully implemented Green Network Plan, could we perhaps address that sort of policy incoherence where we're seeing, selling off property that is parkland that was dedicated to communities? Is that what we can hope for in the future? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a very good example, and it illustrates exactly why our open spaces are vulnerable, because we have to move from seeing our open spaces as merely that land which we have not yet developed into space which provides some services for us that we all value and appreciate, and that when development takes place, we make sure that we do that in a way that does not lose the things that are really special for us. It's not very surprising to find, I've seen elsewhere situations where schools get redeveloped or created, and they don't think about the opportunity in developing that school of how the school grounds themselves can provide some educational value to schools, and thinking that rather than remove everything that's there, let's make use of what's there. That's a whole challenge in itself. And I think some of what you're really alluding to is actually it's about, we've said we've got this policy, what does that mean in practice? How do we apply that? And developing enough of a sense of and enough awareness across, not just within HRM, but across all those that we work with and with communities about this is what good practice looks like. How do we improve that and continue to improve that? And through that, we develop a greater sense of pride in how we're looking after the environment that we know we all care for.
Okay, thank you. Moving on now to Councillor Kent.
Excuse me, thank you. Yeah, thanks. And Madam Chair, this will be my last roundup. I don't need to close specifically, just letting you know. So we're going into the suburban plan exercise, and I'm wondering where we sit with the public engagement pieces of having an update from the public on what they see as their priorities. Is it still the same? Things like that. So has there been any kind of emphasis to the staff who are doing that exercise in relation to this plan and the updated information, things like that? Because right now, as we go through this, as you know, public engagement is critical to the success of that. There is no doubt in my mind that folks within the communities have concerns around the change in their community when the density is offered and things like that. In some of certainly the suburban areas, and because they've built these neighborhoods and the sum total of the neighborhoods is the fabric of their community, and the acceptance of the density input. I feel like we have to have at that same conversation at that time in those spaces that the density is helping us with the fulfilling the green network plan and protection of those green spaces and the protection of, I really liked the quote that was on there around the importance of it to our health and being able to see the sky and being able to see the natural growing things in our communities. And there's no question in my mind. I'm a gardener. I'm a person that can look out at the ocean. I'm blessed to have that. I have a few trees in my neighborhood and in my yard, and they do give us comfort. They just do. It's. I don't think there's any question to that. So I appreciate seeing that there. The conversations that we have in our suburban areas and in our rural, and when that comes, is acknowledging and honoring that with the conversations that we're having around what do we need for planning in this next stage. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Have you had any conversations with the folks that are doing the suburban plan? Kathleen, Kasia, and their teams are working like crazy to do it. We're all excited that it's actually starting now, but we've got a long way to go, and I think we need to have these conversations early in that. Thank you.
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, I have had those conversations, and of course, my focus is all about the Green Network Plan, and their focus is on all aspects of suburban plan. I think one of the challenges we've had with the Green Network Plan is during its delivery in recent years is we haven't really made enough connections about where some of our work connects to delivering the Green Network Plan, and that's unfortunate because we're not helping. We're saying the Green Network Plan is important, which we all know it is, but we're not often making that connection in our communications in a very clear way about how doing this area is helping implement the Green Network Plan. And that's something which I think we will be, through, now that my role is here and I have a planner working with me as well, we're sort of helping change that conversation a little bit internally, so we're better at doing that. Anything you want to add on that? No? Yep.
So before we tie this up, thank you very much for all the work that you do. You're in good hands with Leah, and I think vice versa. So I look forward to seeing this come to council. Thanks.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David and Leah, for being here. I'm thinking about the policy tools that we need. Are any of those internal, or are they all things we need from the provincial government? The policy tools we're missing.
Thank you. Through the chair to the councillor, most of the policy tools have been highlighted where they connect with sort of asking extension of the charter. There have been exploration of whether we're using some of the tools that we have in the extent to which we might apply them. And so there may be sort of further land acquisitions, but then that brings a resource implication. So that's a good example of one where we could use land acquisitions or easements or various options like that we have the ability to use, but we've maybe not exercised that frequently or in the right opportunities, and so we're not quite sure whether that's the whether there's a question to be had whether we are using that to the extent that might be required to fulfill that.
Okay, I think where you talked about having, KPIs or whatever, having real goals and actions would help with that. And then I guess the parts that are external to HRM, I'm wondering if there's an ongoing dialogue with the province about what we need, or is this something we need to put a push on, or, yeah.
Through the chair to the councillor, I've had discussions with provincial staff in the past, and I know there's like sort of regular, meetings between, not me, people above my pay grade, on some of these things. I think we're definitely hoping, certainly on the, what tools do we have in the charter to support the growth that we have going on? We're, I think, hoping to use the strategic growth and infrastructure plan to kind of guide some of that conversation, because we'll be able to say, these are the things we need as we grow to a much larger municipality, and we don't have the tools in order to do that. We'll have some kind of evidence base. So there's that conversation as well, I think.
Okay. And then finally, maybe resources that would help you, like, I mean, talking about land acquisition, that's obviously money. What about staff? Would having more staff help you to do the work, or is it more these policy things that we're stuck on?
Through the chair to councillor, I will always work with the resources that are available, and work with colleagues to help advance stuff. I think I've not suggested to Lee yet. I need a whole team of people, and obviously that may make lives easier and see more results. But I haven't stepped forward and made that sort of case for doing that at this point. But certainly, if the more people there are, the easier it is to make that impact. And it's sort of a chicken and egg. We've not set our stall in terms of how much effort we want to deliver until we've sort of started to identify how much of that is really required. It would be wrong to sort of put the additional, put the resource before the identifying the results. So it could be, as we sort of develop that work plans more fully, that we'd have a clearer sense of it. To achieve this much, we would need this much staff resource. To achieve this much, we would be fine where we are, or whatever, and that would help that analysis sort of
need the plan
make
first,
a decision. Yeah,
with the NMX plan. Okay, I have another minute, so maybe I'll ask. Our speaker was talking a bit about transportation and space for transportation in rural areas and connecting to the core. So I'm wondering, and I'm thinking of the UK, where there's different rules around. You can walk on private land, and we don't have that. So is there ways through the Green Network plan to have land that's away from roads that can be for active transportation and recreation, or does the plan not look at that?
Through the chair to the councillor, there is an action to create recreational linkages between where people are living and the natural parks that people will want to visit, and of course, as well as just a purely sort of health benefits aspect, there are also tourism benefits by doing so, and you make the reference in the UK, the sort of trails network, path network that exists in the UK is an incredible driver for the tourism economy as part of that. So the mechanism is operational of making those connections. It doesn't specify specifically how that's done. A lot of that work is done through the active transportation team's work and so on. But certainly where there's a recognition of opportunities for creating new trails, it's really about sort of building those sort of coalitions and finding the ways forward for how we might want to create that. And the Green Network Plan is a very high-level strategy, is trying to sort of help explore what those opportunities are, rather than necessarily sort of detail the instruments that sort of make those individual trails happen.
Okay, it'd be great to see in your KPIs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Dale Gavin, thank you very much for recognizing, if this goes to regional council, that it comes as a report, and it should be it should be a presentation with requests. And so I'm looking at the deputy mayor at agenda review and making sure there's a presentation associated with it. And I also agree with the Discover Halifax too. I have a question for the clerk. Mr. Clerk, if this is approved today, what agenda does this get to? Does it go to the next regional council agenda?
So somewhat difficult to tell. I believe it would be. It won't make the one next week, certainly.
No.
But I believe the one after would probably be most likely the one.
Thank you. I think that's important. We are moving into budget, and I think it does have budget ramifications, especially if it's tied into a possible cut to the Halifax. So it's really important that we have this conversation at Regional Council. So thank you. David, in your presentation, you used the example of the UK. I think you said for every dollar spent was a $27 benefit. Could you elaborate and give me some examples? Besides, when we talk numbers and dollars, that's intriguing, but I don't understand what is. Give me an example if you can.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor. Yes, the UK, so the City of London, was their ecosystem assessment. I can provide a link to councillors as a follow-up on that.
Yep.
They looked at all the costs of running the parks and open spaces within Greater London, and they also did an economic assessment of the benefits that accrued in different areas. This included health benefits, well-being benefits, economic benefits, so the sort of recreational industry, and other industries that were dependent on recreational activities. They looked at the increase in land values as well, and that was a large amount of that £27 for every pound spent. But their well-being and health benefits were just over between a third and a half of those benefits that accrued. Philadelphia have done another study as well. I don't have those figures immediately to hand, but my recollection was that their benefits were even higher. And so I wouldn't advise you to think of every dollar spent in HRM's open spaces will yield $27 in return. I think the best you can think of is that sort of order of magnitude of benefit, because different cities have different amounts of open space. They have different economic impacts in terms of the value of land and on the health benefits. So the cost of health benefits differ as well.
I think it's so important we tie in that economic benefit, because for some folks, this is a nice to do conversation. And I think most of us here realize this is not a nice to do, it's a must, right? Which actually leads into my next question. Oh, am I out of time? Yeah. Sorry, I'm out of time.
You can come back, Councillor Mancini. Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, just I'm a bit concerned at my time here, but I want to address bringing this forward to Regional Council. I think the purpose of our standing committees are to receive these presentations, to have a good discussion about it. We have Committee of the Whole here right now. We have 11 councillors in the room listening to the presentation, and I think this is the time to use to have that. And if there's things that need to be taken forward into budget, that we can do that. Having been here and having had this discussion, that's something that we could do. I want to be mindful. Excuse me, I'm talking, but I would like, just because you bring it up for discussion again doesn't mean that somebody's going to listen to it. So I think what's important is that we're having this discussion here today. Everyone was invited, and please respect me having the floor, Councillor Mancini. So the reason I buzzed in was not to have that debate, but to talk about the legislation, right? And in other provinces that have implemented green belts or protected green networks, there's been provincial legislation. That's obviously something we don't have at the moment, but something that we really need, and in order to fully realize the vision of this. We talked about parks and health. The other piece is about kind of food security, right? And, we've seen in other cities, and Toronto would be a great example, where development continues to encroach into precious farmland. We don't have a lot of precious farmland in this province. It's in the farmland we do have, we can barely sustain ourselves in terms of food security, and protecting those resources for future generations, I think, is an imperative. It's something that that needs to be done and needs to be legislated. And I'm wondering currently around protecting farmland, what legislation exists provincially or municipally around ensuring that that precious farmland's protected for future generations.
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, the provincial legislation actually there's a statement of provincial interest on agricultural land, so it requires the municipality to identify its agricultural lands, map it, and outline how it is protected or dealt with. Maybe not entirely protected, but it sort of gives some guidance around what level of development should be permitted on those lands. So we've done that through the regional plan. So we have an agricultural designation in the regional plan. The densities that you can achieve in the Musquodoboit Valley primarily is where that's applied, are not high. To the extent that we have viable farmland that is mapped, it's designated appropriately. The other piece that we have been working on, tied to the Green Network Plan is actions of the Green Network Plan, but is also related to the regional plan review is more around the, I was going to say urban agriculture, but it's more like site level agriculture. So, making sure that folks can grow food on their own property and sell it on stands on their own property, that kind of thing. So that was in the regional plan package that was refused by the province, but we'll come back to you over time, and it could come sooner if as we're updating the it's already in place in the regional center. Will come forward through suburban plan and whatnot. So we're sort of tackling that at a few different angles. But yeah, there is provincial legislation, and we do have a designation in the regional plan.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Oh, were you? Okay.
Spent addressing why
Okay.
I don't think we should be bringing forward reports to council first. So we have another presentation with staff. We have 11 councillors here who've already heard it. I'm just being mindful of council's time, budget committee's time, and of staff time. I do believe that these are the places where we should be discussing and debating reports.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. I respectfully disagree on that, because I think in this case the plan has implications for the entire municipality across so many departments that I think it's bigger and more influential report, and I would like to see just some discussion at council on it, but that's maybe for another moment in this meeting. I wanted to ask a little bit about access and whether you would see perhaps at a later phase towards implementation stage of having standards related to access. I know in other cities they have standards such as everyone lives within 300 meters of a green space, or everyone lives within a 10-minute walk and has access to a green space. Or another standard is how many square meters of parkland per person of the population. So this way we start to have objective measurements and can actually see if we're making measurable progress. And so I'm just wondering how you might view those types of standards. And I also had some questions around how this work feeds into, I don't quite understand, I'm looking for more clarity on how this work that you've done, this update, feeds into the suburban plan, phase 5, and the strategic growth and infrastructure plan coming in 2027. I guess on standards, I guess.
Madam Chair, I'm Richard Harvey, Manager of Policy and Planning with Parks and Recreation. So the municipality does have standards with regards to its subdivision bylaw, looking at new development, and we often use those standards as well for looking at some of our existing development as well. There are also some standards in a preliminary manner that are presented within the Green Network Plan itself. But I think importantly to the committee and then to members of council, we have identified within our business plan an update, if you like, to the Community Facilities Master Plan 2, but breaking it into 2 and having a concentration on what we're referring to as a park and outdoor facilities plan. It's really with that we'll be updating some of those standards that we're already using in many ways in terms of looking at community development. But those very standards that Councillor Morse would have referred to are exactly the types that we'll be expanding upon within that plan. I don't want to leave members of the committee with any thoughts that we don't already use standards, that we don't already are keyed on looking at exactly those types of factors of distance to parkland and outdoor spaces, and looking at a whole spectrum of different parks and open spaces, cognizant of the desire of the public to be able to access spaces that have a variety of different uses to them.
Through the chair to the councillor. So on sort of relating the Green Network Plan to those other projects, I would think of the Green Network Plan as kind of an overarching lens through which you're going to, you know, as we're doing the work on those projects, you're achieving the actions that are set out in the Green Network Plan. So there's like a number of actions that are related to, you know, we should update the regional plan to do X, update our secondary planning strategies to do Y. So a lot of those things, as we bring the regional plan or the suburban plan forward, those actions will be achieved. The strategic growth and infrastructure plan is about, if we're a city of 1 million people, what services and infrastructure do we need? Where are we growing, first of all, and what are the services and infrastructure that we need to support that kind of growth? So the Green Network Plan is like a great kind of lens to pull in, because you're not only looking at those, you know, like the work that Richard's doing on the parks and outdoor facilities will feed into that strategic growth plan, but also, you know, where are our most important places where, if we're thinking about how we're growing, are we protecting them in the right way, or, you know, how are they interacting with the settlement areas? Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. It's just in the preliminary discussions I've had so far about suburban plan, and I hadn't heard any reference to the Green Network Plan. So I guess maybe it's coming in later discussions, but in you know, the discussion of what's happening next week, for example, in my district, I hadn't heard any reference to it. So I hope there will be some you know, some thoughts that when people come forward to those meetings, that we do talk about the Green Network Plan. Now that the report is available, it seems like it should be at least referenced when the public is talking about their concerns at those upcoming meetings. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Madam Chair, I apologize to the Deputy Mayor for speaking over her when she was speaking. That's inappropriate. However, I do disagree with the Deputy Mayor. I believe we, as council and committee members, that if we request an information report goes forward and we see it as requested as a presentation, we have the ability and the right to do so. I believe this is very important. Yes, there are 11 people here, but there's 6 people missing, including the mayor. And the mayor is the person, very clear, the mayor's the one that's leading the charge and cutting back Halifax 1/3. So if he's not in the room, does he read the report? Who knows? But at least if he's in the room, he has the ability to hear this. So I think it's extremely important it's brought forward. I think you see a theme here. Many councillors have asked about the tie-in to planning, right? And I think Councillor Kent has started that conversation where, you know, what's the connection, the Green Network Plan, and all this planning and development and density. I mean, in my area alone, I can reference Shabukta Ford site at top of Main Street, 3 proposed towers there, Harbor Isle, which is next to the Dartmouth Yacht Club, a 3rd tower being built there, Opal Ridge, which was one of the special planning areas from the province, in Penhorn Mall, giving it more density, and all of this. And on top of the list, Port Wallace development, which was 10,000 people, which is literally across the street from my home, which is fine, and they're in phase 1 now. But when we talk about that open space, all threatening that open space, so we're looking for, you know, we're looking for the teeth, to be able to say no at times, not say no to development, because we need development, absolutely. But the protection of that green space, the protection, you know, we've had conversations in this room about the 30-meter setback that the regional plan and the province has kicked us out of that. Doesn't make sense. So I looked at the regional plan. Is there an element in the regional plan to help us with that argument? So I think you see that theme. I only had one other. The next steps. So maybe ties into what I just stated, David. The program charter to guide governance. Can you give me an example of what that looks like, and how it, an ideal world, how it could be used?
Sure. Through the chair to the councillor. Yeah, the program charter is really a document that details who the different responsibilities, who the different individuals within HRM who are implementing aspects of the Green Network Plan. So it's providing that clarity. It's also establishing what the oversight should be, and that's an important aspect of making sure that the coordination is operating at the right levels across business units. And so, for example, if there are bigger areas of risk or bigger areas of resource, that those conversations are happening in the right place. And so a program charter is sort of providing that clarity of the who. It also can help provide the timeline, which I think was also mentioned. And it should also then express what the success measures should be and how that's monitored. So that's really how what that looks like in practice. So it's quite a sort of dry, uninteresting document, but actually it provides that important focus of we then all have a common understanding what our roles are and how we can then work together. And that's a very good way of sort of helping move forward with clarity.
Great. And David, we don't have any dry documents here at HRM, so they're all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And apology accepted, Councillor Mancini. Thank you. The other question I had was about stormwater management, right? And I think, what we've seen with climate change is that it's really taking a toll on our stormwater infrastructure systems, particularly in areas like Spryfield, where we have a lot of granite and rock, very thin layer of topsoil. When that gets stripped away and developed, it causes stormwater issues, not only for neighboring properties, but for our infrastructure as well. And so, I think it's already been well documented and understood that things like wetlands and ponds and watercourses play a really important role in the management of stormwater. And I'm, wondering, as we move forward between the Green Network Plan, working with Halifax Water and the infrastructure plan, and developers, like, how are we treating natural systems and the value those natural systems play in our municipal infrastructure? I just got an email during this meeting today from staff saying that no buffer is required around a wetland, even though that wetland plays a significant role in stormwater management. I'm talking about Roche's Pond in Spryfield, where the developer clear cut to the edge of the pond, and my understanding was the 20-meter buffer was at least going to have to be reinstated, but now I'm told no buffer is being reinstated. So when I see things like that happening, that's going to cost the municipality money. And by the municipality, I mean taxpayers' money, right? If we're not protecting our stormwater infrastructure, and the role that those natural systems play. So I don't know if you can speak a little bit more about what coordination's happening between Green Network Plan, the province, Halifax Water, and how these natural systems are being valued. We talk about the value of parkland for health, but are we putting dollars and cents to the value of natural systems, for infrastructure, but also ecological integrity? When we divert that water out of the natural systems, it does have an impact on the integrity of these systems.
Through the chair to the the councillor. There's a very interesting study which the Environment Climate Change team have been working on, which is, I think, is approaching its last phase, looking at the 9 Mile River and at the economic assessment of the value of the ecosystem services that are provided by that. And I think that's, you mentioned about the dollar value, that's probably the best example that we have internally within HRM around that. So there is some coordination. Whether it's achieving the results that we might all want, I guess it's a work in progress. But the buffers that you mentioned is an example of how in establishing those buffers, that's an important. But it's not just obviously the lakes and the water bodies are owned by the province, but actually it's the buffers around there provide an important aspect of stormwater management, because they absorb the water as it drains through the system, and it is problematic if we, or it can be problematic if we build on those and do not allow the ability for the water to be able to drain away, and that has in some places, parts of the world, that has led to some complications. There's a very classic example in Seoul in South Korea, where they built an expressway on top of a river, and that stopped the river from functioning, and they spent a large amount of money removing that expressway and turned it into a park, and it turned out to provide greater financial benefit to the city as a result of it being a park and a functioning river as well. And certainly there are examples here where we're starting to recognise the role of how we manage those watercourses can actually provide improvements, not just to the environmental emergency management piece, but also actually to providing a pleasant place. For example, the Sawmill River in Dartmouth is a part of that.
I was just going to add, there is some ongoing work between our Resilient Infrastructure Standards group in planning and development, and I think joint with Halifax Water on developing green infrastructure standards. So I don't have the details of that work, but I know they've been working on that over the last couple of years. And we can certainly connect you with those folks, because it would be how when you're designing your stormwater systems in relation to development, what types of systems you're using. Not an engineer, so I won't try to explain it. But yeah, I think there is some ongoing work there, and I think there's been some discussion over the last while about the province updating their standards, but I also don't have the details of that. But I'm sure I can certainly connect you with the right folks.
Right, certainly something I think we all need to be advocating for, and it's not just about water quantity, it has to be about the quality as well, and how we protect the quality of water. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We've had a really robust discussion. Not seeing any other names on the board, I do have a further question, if I may. Okay, great. Thank you. David, you alluded to further land acquisition as a bit of something we could do internally. How do you see that playing out in terms of the Green Network Plan influencing further land acquisition to make those connections, the community connections that we want? And then, so I guess I'm just wondering how we see that working and what would need to be in place internally to ensure that is happening. Because I know, I hear about various advocacy groups call for HRM to purchase certain wilderness area pieces and other pieces. So I'm curious on, what the mechanics might look like, and then what council would need to do perhaps to facilitate that.
Madam Chair, so Regional Council has set priorities with regards to land acquisitions, and those are either, as an example, incomplete regional parks where municipal council set a priority on certain land acquisitions. There can be, of course, discrete programs to which the council has identified an area of land to be identified. And we also would bring forward to council any lands which we think are strategic to complete our park, if you like, connections, which have an element, obviously, of ecological protection, but also human use. So those are just examples of the ways in which we and we collectively have a program of land acquisitions. If there are new ideas that are brought, those are generally the topics of regional council motions, staff reports. That's generally the process by which we are collectively looking at land acquisitions that serve a variety of different purposes.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Just a quick follow-up on that. So how does the team that works on this work with the Green Network Plan to, facilitate that we're making those strategic purchases or acquisitions, or maybe retaining things that are part of the important Green Network as well? How are those decisions made collectively between the groups? I'm trying to get at the overarching priorities that come from the Green Network Plan. How do they influence the decision making on acquisitions, but also maintaining green space? And I think of the Mainland Common, for example.
To the chair, I think one of the foundational elements that David would have mentioned at the very outset of his presentation is that, importantly, and I think almost uniquely, the Green Network Plan talks about open space over a variety of different, parameters, if you like. It talks about parks as an example, but it also talks about open space that may be associated with working landscapes or otherwise. So under the umbrella of the Green Network Plan, we as a municipality are actually looking at a variety of different open space measures. So when you're looking at an example, even at a planning application would look at the Green Network Plan, some of the concepts associated with it, and look at the preservation of open space as it best ties into that context. And another element would be looking at parkland and saying, well, is it most appropriate for the municipality to acquire those lands primarily for public access and ecological protection at the same time? So I would say that is an umbrella document, has various different business units and various different responsibilities all being tied together, and I think that's what is one of the most important elements of the plan.
Thank you, Richard. We'll move on to Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. You've prompted another question for Richard. I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we have funds for land acquisition, but we don't have differentiated pockets for that money. And it's quite a different thing to acquire a piece of land for a pickleball court, for example, or for ecological function. Very different things. So if we were wanting to move to have more protection for ecological functions, for wetlands, or for something in particular, old growth forest or something, as was mentioned earlier, would we need to bring a motion to council to specifically target funds for ecological function parks rather than for recreational parks? Because I don't think we differentiate right now.
Yes and no, through the chair. So when we are speaking, about a park, we are primarily talking about a sort of a spectrum of different parks. Importantly, for the parks that you've just referenced in that sort of, if you like, more natural state, those have an element of human use as well. If you almost like naturally, they've got elements, even if you're thinking about a wetland in many ways, that's often got a trail associated with it, has some sort of nature appreciation with it. That's a key element of the charter with regards to parkland. So it's a sort of a yes and a no in the sense that we're preserving those lands, not necessarily primarily for their ecological function, that happens in another way, but they combined with some element of human recreation, which can be as simple as nature appreciation. That's how we are essentially addressing those things. There are a retention of if you like, ecological features that can also happen by way of parkland dedication. They can happen by way of a development application by which we are looking at different areas. They can also happen by way of planning tools. So there can be planning tools put into place that require buffers from natural features where our plans through the municipal planning strategies and land use bylaws have set those in place. So I would suggest that we already inherently have funds which are available for parkland acquisitions from a broad sense of looking at acquiring lands for those types of features of parks and nature appreciation that contain many of those natural features. But of course, if there was to be a particular area of that there was to be an idea of council to look at, we could certainly address those things, but it's probably a more detailed conversation over a specific area.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. I'm not seeing any other conversation on this. Could I have a motion to move out of committee of the whole, please? Thank you, Councillor Purdy, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Cuddle. Thank you. So we're now back on the other motion, the main motion on the report. Are we ready for the question? Okay, the question has been called for. All those in favor, raise your hand or signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay, or raise your hand. The motion has passed. Thank you. So moving along, we don't have any other motions. There is no in camera. We have no added motions or no added items. Do any councillors have notices of motion? No notices of motion. And the date of the next meeting is February 17, 2026. So could I have a motion for adjournment, please? Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned at 11:46 a.m. I'm supposed to say that, aren't I?
Well, you got there.